Continue with the question, bro.
We all know you're trying to pop lark.
I'm trying to think of a serious answer here.
No, so okay. So, jokes aside. Here's a more serious question. So let's leave religion out of this, regardless of like God.
Okay.
Let's just look at it from a natural standpoint. So, from a natural standpoint, what do you guys think is the point of being able to not only manipulate nature, but have consciousness and self-awareness? My question derives in the idea of like, what benefit does this have for nature itself?
I'm Gary, but in all seriousness, trying to answer that, it's fucking difficult, because I would say the only point of not only being able to manipulate nature, but having consciousness and being one with nature itself, is to maintain that symbiotic balance, that everything is supposed to begin and end and continue that same circle until life as itself ceases to exist. Survival, basically. I know that's a basic answer, and I'm willing to go more deep into it.
Yeah.
The reason why I was asking is because, like, for example, I get where you're coming from, and I had a similar conclusion to it. But the problem was that when I really dabbled into it and like really thought about it, like, there are creatures that can use tools, right, in nature, not necessarily manipulate nature in the sense of like, take certain things and make other things with it, like the way we create different kinds of metals and shit like that. But that doesn't give them the ability to be like self-aware, like we do. Like I said, we create metals and shit like that. So in order to be symbiotic with nature, you don't necessarily need consciousness or the ability to manipulate nature.
That's literally baked into your DNA. That pretty much, it's almost like automatic.
Yeah, like we as a species have like pretty much dabbled in everything, right? Like there's certain animals that will only eat certain other animals, will only live in certain areas based on what their natural abilities are through evolution. But we at some point looked at a cow and we're like, yo, whatever that fucking little thing is drinking over there, when it gets done, I'm gonna walk over and suck on that teeth.
We're more open to exploration.
We've learned to maximize our ability to adapt.
And then, Rick, would you say that this is not something that's really kind of like universal? Like, there's people that choose not to really manipulate nature.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. I think it's more of a Western situation in the sense that, like, there are New World people per se that like chose not to, like, we Native Americans, people in early Africa, that like we all chose to live in this symbiotic balance.
There's still cultures
like
that do that around the world
with nature.
Because I think of it a little bit like nature versus nurture, and maybe that's where that whole phrase came by. But like nature would just be like, you don't really mess with nature. You just let it run its course and do its thing. Whereas nurture is where you're manipulating it and you're, in a sense, protecting it or doing harm to it.
Right.
Yeah, but see, like that's why my question was a two-part question, because even if you are living in balance with nature, right, there's still that consciousness side of yourself that understands that at any given point you can manipulate.
Totally.
But other animals
they just go on about their lives.
So like this is one of those things where I was thinking like, what's the point of that? Like why would nature allow us to evolve to the point where we're still aware of that
most
situation?
Animals who don't manipulate, because there's a very small amount that do. What if they are beyond the need to manipulate? Like, it's not necessary for them to function, which is why it's not really something they focus towards, right? Because there are conditions where they can learn to do something different based off of their environment.
Right.
Well, that would make us that would make us although we agree that we are the superior species on the planet, it would actually make us the primitive species
speaking,
on the planet, where all other species have learned that it's not
okay, right.
But here we are.
How about this?
Like mistakes along the way.
Have you ever heard that, like in the past, humans and animals were able to communicate with each other on a completely different level, to the point where we were able to understand each other, right?
Yeah,
so
we've
gotten to the
not from a scientific standpoint, but if we're going back and like bringing now the religious aspect of things, like if you're looking at it from Adam and Eve.
Keep going, Marcus.
Okay, then no, I've never heard that before.
So there's somebody I follow on
so go ahead.
TikTok, and she's a South African, and she was saying how the people and animals used to actually work together in order to survive. They were able to communicate with each other. Like the monkeys were the ones that used to go and eavesdrop on other areas and go back and relay what they heard, and birds were able to help them find shit that they need to survive. Same thing with other animals. If they sense danger, they would communicate that with us, so we know to get the hell out of Dodge. And we've gotten so far removed from that point because of we started relying on ourselves and stopped relying on them for help, that we can't even hear the animals anymore.
Do you think we've turned our back on animals?
I believe that we evolved to the point where we abandoned the ability and skill in order to communicate with said animals, to the point where now we just don't understand them at all.
I mean, don't get me wrong. That's as far as like, yeah, you could call it a far-fetched theory, but it's not improbable. I personally haven't come across any evidence to.
I gotta rewatch the Jungle
that
Book.
idea. But yeah, I was gonna say just because I haven't come across any evidence, so the lack of evidence isn't the evidence of lacking. You know what I mean?
It's
like
just an unknown right now.
It's definitely probable. Yeah, I mean, from my perspective, I feel like it's, and speaking with other people, like it's one of those situations where, like, maybe it's just a gift, that we have the ability to do all these things and be self-aware of it, but leaving religion out of this, it just baffles me that we even have that ability, because it almost seems like it's unnecessary.
I was going to say that it's like a responsibility.
Yeah,
because something that you have to continue.
It's like a skill that you have to maintain.
Because I see that.
Stop, you lose it.
Yeah.
Yep.
Exactly. I mean, I see that in my 2-year-old daughter. She's just living life, enjoying it, and here I am knowing about all the life responsibilities and bills and all the adult lives, and I'm like, all this time I wanted to grow up and be an adult, and now that I'm an adult, I'm like, I wish I would have the ignorance of a child.
No, hell yeah.
Because they truly enjoy life, whereas we're stressed and we're always like trying to get to the next day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, and like from a natural standpoint, it's the equivalent of consciousness, right? Like we're self-aware and we're conscious of how we affect the environment, and most other animals don't. Like they live in balance in the sense that like, oh, there's more animals for me to be able to eat, or there's more plants for me to eat.
Yep.
Therefore, we can create more of ourselves. But with us, we're just.
So would it be safe to say that?
No, go ahead, brother.
In increasing our self-awareness, we chose to abandon our ignorance as a species.
I don't know if it's the ignorance.
Yes and no, because like, did we abandon it? You know what I mean? Like, because we increased our self-awareness, but did we abandon our ignorance? Because it's almost like we decided,
that's
no longer take care of nature.
Right there. It's like we
willfully turned our back on it.
Once we created our own, it's almost like a willful thing, because it's almost like the idea that like, oh, now we're better than, we understand how nature works, therefore it's up to us whether we want to protect it or not.
Instead of a priority.
And then, which is, I guess that's the part that like, because I was having this conversation with my wife, right? I was just saying, like, how do you explain consciousness to a child?
They're not going to get the idea at all.
Yeah,
like as they said, they're.
Do you get the idea as an adult? Tell me that you understand the idea as an adult now. Do you understand?
I'm gonna take a stab at this real quick, and this is coming. This is coming from a quote I got from Avatar: The Last Airbender. And Jong said this. So a fish can spend its entire life in a river, but it cannot imagine its end. It cannot see the ocean.
Right.
So meaning it can only be aware of its surroundings. It doesn't know what is further down the river unless it explores it, which would be them literally seeking the knowledge of knowing what else is out there. And when they reach the ocean, they realize there's pretty much more of it, and there's way more of it than you actually expected, as opposed to staying in your environment and just learning to work within that environment. If that makes sense.
Yes, no, I definitely get that, but like, I guess now that I'm gonna be a father, like, the idea of explaining consciousness to somebody, like, how do you explain to somebody that we are self-aware, we are able to manipulate and do things with our environment that no other species
you could have her watch Masters of the Universe.
Yeah, I don't think it's one of those things that they're gonna
you know what I mean? Like,
until they become teenagers. That's probably
even it's a challenge. I hear Rick though, because they're gonna ask you why. Kids ask why, and what's your rebuttal?
Trying to become self-aware.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
This is difficult.
No, I don't.
Get ready, Rick.
Understand it. Cause like I don't understand. Like I am aware that I see all you guys and I know that you guys exist and we can have conversations and change ideas, right? But I can't explain.
I ask that every now and then to myself. There's days where I question: do you guys really exist, or are you guys just figures of my imagination? Does the world exist? Do I know that my girlfriend's actually asleep right now? Or am I like really?
Here's the crazy part. Well, here's the crazy part. Technically, we're all figments of everybody else's imagination because our brain is only translating.
Right. Like when you guys aren't around,
us, like, for all I know,
I don't know you guys exist.
Not even blind.
Yeah, that's just.
I'm serious. Like when you guys aren't around, like.
Well, no, and it's true. It's not until his sensory organs,
sound,
sight, smell, weird as fuck, sound, taste, fucking touch. Like any of your five senses, it's not until any of your five senses register anything that you understand that it exists. And once that they're no longer registering, you have no idea that it's still there.
Once you guys are out of my once you guys are out of my line of sight, I don't know about you guys are there or not.
Even when you're,
it's just like that saying.
And even then, like once your senses register it, right? They're only interpreting electrical signals based on the chemical reaction that your brain has to those senses.
That's just like that saying: if a tree falls down in the forest and no one's around to hear it, did it actually make a sound? No, it didn't make a sound because no one was around to hear it. Like we didn't know the tree fucking fell.
See, here's the thing: I would argue that it did.
Yeah, but if you didn't know it fell, how do you know it exists? And if you didn't know it exists, did it really fall?
Mm-hmm.
Well, if you're assuming that the tree actually fell because somebody had to have fucking perceived it in order to know that it even fell in the first place.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's a perception thing. That's why, like, consciousness is such a perception thing that it baffles me. It was one of those, like, I was in the car the other day thinking about this, and it was the idea that, like, how do I explain this to somebody that has an even lesser understanding of the universe than I do?
It's honestly damn near impossible because anything hold on. Anything an idea that seems crazy to you might not seem crazy to someone else and vice versa, right? You try to explain that what you just said to somebody who's who their own world is just, man, I'm trying to make it to tomorrow and get my money or whatever. Right. Exactly.
It's the big concept that Marcus was just talking about.
Yeah, but caring is not really where we're going with this. Like taking emotions out of it. This is pretty much logic right now. We're trying to apply here. Emotions are pretty much not.
Well, I wasn't getting at emotions. What I'm saying is like,
yeah. See, caring is emotion, though. That's what I'm saying.
Don't get emotional, Julio.
No. I was
really, Jose.
No, I just got interrupted by my girlfriend, but it's no worries. No, but what I'm saying was like, it's one of those things like.
So see you in 5 minutes.
No, you can only explain so much. Depending on the person's understanding of what because they're going to be going off of, well, what's my world? What goes on in my day, in my life? That's what I'm getting at.
But here's the thing, like, even then, even if that's the thing, like, what's going on in my day, in my life, that, like Marcus was saying, that's an emotional concept. Because what the question here is, how do you define consciousness? How do you explain consciousness? And the idea that, like, yo, we are the only species on this planet with self-awareness enough to know that, like, I could fucking take this tree, chop it down, and then build a house. Because even
beavers can do that.
The argument that my wife was making was like, well, there's other animals that can manipulate nature, right? Like, there's birds can
make nests,
and
beavers build dams
and make nests, but the inverse of that is the fact that, like, those leaves and those branches have to have falling off the tree first. We actually go there and we chop that shit off the tree.
What about woodpeckers?
Well, a woodpecker doesn't actually manipulate its surroundings. A woodpecker listens for things living underneath the bark and shit.
Yeah, but they change the tree.
And like Julio was saying, with beavers, yeah, that's what I mean. Like, you could change certain things. Like, there's chimps that will use sticks to get fucking termites out of fucking termite holes and shit. So they'll put sticks in there. But we can then take that same stick and fucking file it down to create a spear and stab the termite. You know what I mean? Like, we could also take that same
to break
stick.
Open clams and shit.
Yeah, so we do get that, like, animals know how to use things from their surroundings for their benefit. But, like, we use things from our surroundings, like
multi-use.
Like, for example, like Julio was saying, beavers, right? We saw a beaver, like, yo, they could do this to, like, control water. We did it at a grander scale. Look at Lake Berryessa here in California. We're like, yo, we're gonna stop this little river and we're gonna create fucking mile-long fucking lake.
It's a nice lake.
You know what I mean? Like, that's what I mean. Like, we manipulate it at such a grand scale.
Discussions with Ricky episode.
And I mean, it's just and we're aware of it, to a point where we know like, if I do this will happen.
That's what you're saying.
You know?
They know that, but they probably can't do anything.
They don't realize it though.
Against it.
See, the thing is, if an animal can literally sense a natural disaster about to happen and run away, they know the impact that what they do on their environment, which is why it affects on such.
But see, an animal can sense a natural disaster because they're aware. They're aware of it from a different
survival
perspective, right?
Yeah.
Like, they might be able to sense. They might be able to sense the changes in the magnetic field, whatever it is, the air pressure that we can't, because we've given up the ability for how do I explain it? Okay. For our ability to be able to manipulate and understand cause and effect to the point where we can alter nature to an extent where we do understand alchemy, right? Like a bird or a beaver or any other animal that uses tools can never take something from nature and make something else out of it that isn't already within the nature of the thing that they're using as a tool. You know, a chimp is not going to be able to file down that stick and turn it into a spear to then, instead of using it to feed itself, use it as a spear during war. A beaver will never be able to chop down that tree, and instead of either creating a home or a dam with it, create a fucking log cabin. Like that's what I'm asking, where the difference is. Like, what would be the point of all of that? Like, what's the point of being able to essentially create art? It has no benefit to nature other than us experiencing it for ourselves.
Yeah, and a lot of those things, it just comes down to, someone else experienced it and then passed it down and like taught the next generation about that, and it just became kind of that tribal knowledge.
But here's the thing, so chimps do it, right? Like I was saying, chimps have used tools and they saw somebody else use a stick to get termites, and therefore there's that. But there's never been an evolution from that to where, we decided, like one time we tried meat that was burnt on a fire and it was heated, and we're like, wow, this is delicious. And hundreds of years later, besides continuing to just put meat on a grill and heating it, now we have,
and now you got all the different types of ways to cook the meat, rare, medium rare, well done.
All of that stemmed from someone literally just throwing meat in the fire, and maybe it was by accident too.
Yeah, and other animals haven't been able to get past that. So like the idea that like we're consciously aware that like, oh, this is good, so what if I do this and then add this on top of it and then do this? Like the consciousness.
That's the thing though. Have they ever needed to go past it? So.
Hey.
I don't know. Did we ever actually need to make a fucking hamburger?
Sushi Rito?
Yeah.
Why am I on a micro? Why am I talking on a microphone right now?
Like,
quesadillas.
It doesn't serve nature.
Cow milk for us. That shit is not healthy for us whatsoever. In fact, it has no nutritional value.
None at all. None.
And we made chocolate milk out of it.
Unless we're drinking straight from the titty.
And strawberry milk.
It's not benefiting us. It never has. It never will.
Strawberry milk.
Delicious. Into a smoothie.
No, but that's my point, Marcus. That's my point. Like, there's no other animal, right, that has used tools or is conscious or self-aware to an extent where, like, we looked at a cow and was like, yo, that thing is taking something out of that tit. When it gets, I'm going to go over there and I'm going to suck that titty and I'm going to drink whatever it is. No other animal does it. And that's what I mean about, like, being able to manipulate nature and our surroundings in a way that other species on this planet haven't been able to, or maybe haven't seen the need to.
Right.
Because I feel like if they were put in a situation where they would have to adapt and evolve from their normal practices,
right,
either they would adapt or they would die out. I mean, look at all the endangered species that went out, like the dodo. It literally didn't really serve a purpose. It didn't see a way for it to continue going on, and it died out. And it was basically a useless bird. Didn't really contribute shit to the environment. Didn't do anything.
Well, I would say in closing thoughts for our audience, I'd like to hear back from them, like the idea, like, why do you guys think we were granted by nature? Because let's leave religion out of it. It's granted by nature the ability to be able to build on thought. I guess that would be where this all derives from. Like, we have been able to build on ideas. Why be so self-aware and conscious to be able to do something like that if it obviously has served no purpose to benefit nature?
Yeah, definitely want to hear what you guys think about that. Please let us know in the comments.
Yep. And with that, we are out of here. So thank you guys for watching, and don't forget to follow us. We put up episodes 5 days a week, sometimes 6. We'll see how this goes.
4
to 5. No.
Take that cow titty out your mouth.
All right,
guys.
Later, guys.